Shalom everyone, and we are studying today the parasha of BeHa'alotkha. You can find it in the book of Numbers, chapter 8, verse 1. And it starts with, of course, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe לאמור, and God speaks to Moses, saying, verse 2, דבר אל אהרון ואמרת אליו, speak to Aaron, and you should tell him, בהעלותך את הנרות אל מול פני המנורה יאירו שיבת הנרות. Now we need a whole class just to explain this verse. What does it mean בהעלותך את הנרות? Now, if we're going to the English normal translation, in most translations, בהעלותך את הנרות, it's being translated as when you kindle the candles. Okay? However, that's not what it says. It says BeHa'alotkha. BeHa'alotkha, the word BeHa'alotkha comes from the verb Ein Lamed Hey, to raise, Allah. You know, when somebody comes up, somebody makes immigration to Israel, it's not being called immigration, it's called Aliyah, ascension, going up. Israel National Air company is El Al, two upwards, right? Upwards. Okay, and it goes like this. The word Aliyah, BeHa'alotkha, BeHa'alotkha is a word that means as you raise, as you raise, as you ascend, as you bring up. Why? To kindle. And by the way, that reminds us, previous parasha, Parashat Naso, we have the same issue. When it says Naso et Rosh Bnei Israel, in the translation it says make a census. But Naso means another word to raise the heads of the nation of Israel. So what's the story over here? You have one word and the translation is something else. So here we're being presented to one of the most amazing concepts that the Torah is teaching us, which is basically the key for a real spiritual, fulfilling, happy life. And I think today, nowadays, when the world is changing so fast, we can understand that stuff much better. And I'll give you an example. Okay? When in, the world centuries ago, when you tell somebody to light the fire, they physically go and light the fire in the oven, which means you have to do, lighting the fire means to light the fire. When your mother tells you, call your neighbor and tell him so-and-so, you get out of the house and you call your neighbor. And you call him, Jacob. Okay? You call the neighbor. Okay? So it's like every verb has the very literal, simple understanding. However, today we live in an era in which it doesn't mean what you say does not mean what you do. Okay, physically. For instance, when somebody tells you, call that person, so what does it mean? That person lives, 2 blocks away. He lives next door. You take the phone, and what do? Physically, you take a physical piece, right? A phone. You have a piece, you take that piece, you turn it on, you push some stuff. That's not even a button anymore. The phones, the ones who have the new smartphones, they don't have any buttons. So you just push on figures and you dial a number, and it's not even a dial. Once to dial was meaning really to take a dial and you dial with your finger. Today, dialing is even not a dialing. You push not even a button. Okay? And what do? You activate the system that you cannot see. You activate, why can we see the radio waves projected from our phone? No. And these waves go and connect to the cell system network in the neighborhood, and that activates something, and so on and so forth. We have no idea what it does. Once upon a time, calling someone was just calling him. Or let's say today you send a letter. Okay, when was the last time you guys send physically a letter? Which means you took a piece of paper, you write on it, or you type on it with a type machine, okay, typing machine, and then you put it into a physical paper envelope, and then you seal it, and then you go to the post office or to one of those red boxes on the street, and you put inside the letter and you send a letter. Who does that? Today, how do you send a letter? Okay, either you open your phone, and then you write some stuff, and then you push the send button, okay, or there's a different ways to do it, depends on the program you're using, correct? So what does it mean to send a letter? So what we understand over here, it's like the whole of humanity is being prepared to a universe in which we really understand that most of our lives are happening beyond the physical senses. Today, most of our dealings, let's say business, let's say even money. I'm sending you money. What do I mean you send money? You just push a button in on your phone and you send money. What do I mean? You're not sending money. Once sending money was like taking the coins or a bill of coins, and then you send it with a ship, with a messenger, and so physically you send it. Today, how do you send money? You don't send money, and the money is not. There's no physical money almost. The physical money is in many places all over the world. It's dying. Most of the money is electronic. Okay, so basically, when I think about doing something, a lot of stuff that I'm doing is basically it's being happening on the cloud. And the cloud, my bank is in the cloud, okay? My friends, business partners, they are in the cloud. Why? Where do I send the letters, the money? I send it through a cloud, okay? So it's happening somewhere in a dungeon or some servers, who knows where, and I don't care, because there is a kind of an idea that I'm sending it. As long as I see the results on my phone, I know the money was transferred. Okay? Why is that so important? Because we are living in a very, very special era. The universe is changing around us in order to prepare our minds, our hearts, our understanding to the real universe that was hidden from us for so many years. And that's why we go back to the same questions that we had. What does it mean, BeHa'alotkha? BeHa'alotkha et hanerot. You should raise the candles. In English, you translate it as kindling. And what's the difference between raising BeHa'alotkha and raising Naso et Rosh Bnei Israel? Both in English, literal translation is raising. What are you doing over here? Okay? So last Parashat Naso, the word Naso, how do you say in Hebrew a president? Nasi. Say Nun, Sin, Yud, Aleph. How do you write Naso? Nun, Sin, Aleph. Which means, what is Nasi? Somebody who's already being raised. How was he raised? The nation voted for him, and they chose him to be above them so he can raise which means he can lead the nation. So there's basically a difference between Nasi and a king. King is anointed. Again, how do you see he is anointed? He has some godly spark from above. Nasi is somebody that the people raise him from below. Okay? He's being voted for by the people. If the people do not recognize him, he is not a Nasi. Okay? So, what does it mean a Nasi? Somebody who's raised, he knows he is above. He knows his head is raised high, which means he feels honored and responsible. Here, the same thing with Naso, et Rosh Bnei Israel, last week's parasha. Naso means you, in order for a person in a community, a society, a business to function properly to the utmost of their ability of productivity, you need the verb naso, which means you have to raise them up to their position so they feel elevated and raised, which means honored. Nasi is an honored person. Nasi ha'edah. It's not just the president of the nation, could be just the president of the society. Somebody is honored more than the others, and therefore, because you're being honored, because you know people trust you to deliver, then you feel raised, you feel empowered, and that's naso. So the two verbs speak about elevation. Okay, one is taking a person, elevating their thinking to a place that they really step up, take responsibility, so they can deliver, which every human being needs that. And there's a very important saying about what is a successful grown up. It is conditioned by one adult that really believed in the child that he can really make and deliver and reach somewhere important. So the trust that you give someone is so important, because that is what creates the elevation to the honor and the ability to deliver. Okay, which is so important when we're talking about a complete, true, functional society. Okay, which basically, what is the Torah about? The Torah is not about religion. The Torah is about, religion is a word that has nothing to do with the Torah. The Torah is a wisdom that explains to you hidden ways and mysterious ways how the universe is structured, so you can understand, by understanding the law of the universe, you can maximize your life on earth. That's what the Torah is about. While when people say religion, religion is mostly adherence to a certain movement that turns sooner or later into political force, because when a lot of people listen to you, you might as well be seduced to use it to political gains. Okay? So, which something we saw for the last millennium and even millennia, too many times. Now, so what is connection? So after explaining that, the same thing, BeHa'alotkha et hanerot. When you tell somebody, please turn on the light in the room, okay? Kindle, you don't say kindle a light, because till a century ago, most people on earth, they had to kindle a light. Today it's electricity. So what do? Physically, you go to the wall in most places and you push a piece of plastic that closes a circuit, and the result is that in another part of the room, the light bulb turns on and starts to give or project light. Okay? So, but you don't tell the person, go push the plastic. You tell him, turn the light on. Okay, so we're learning that you do something that you can describe the physical action with a certain word, but you don't give that word to the action. You give the word connected to the outcome, the desired outcome of your action. Now, why is that so important for all of us? Because, again, when we learn basics in spirituality and we ask the first question, was it that we really want in life? And people automatically say, we want, we want a nice house, we want money, we want a good job, we want security. And the question is that what you want? And unfortunately, this is how modern education works. We are being brainwashed again and again and again. When you have certain possessions, everything else will be already okay. Which means all your effort and your focus should be on achieving physical gains, possessions, and power, which power means the ability to control the flow of money, mostly. Okay? Now, and that's how we have been developed into a generation that is so unsatisfied, disenchanted with life, that we are all addicted to so many things as a cover up for our lack, that we're empty. Now, so when we come to the word BeHa'alotkha et hanerot, why is the Torah using the word BeHa'alotkha, which means as you raise up the candles, which mean that Aaron kindled the candles in the menorah? And the Zohar is asking the same question. So, almost 2,000 years ago, the words of the Zohar. It's like, the way the Zohar says it is very, very simple. And it says, it's being said a few times, and I'm just going to read in the Zohar Sulam, verse 11. תחה זה, בשעתה דכהנה התכוון להדלקה בוצינין לטאטה. והווה קריב קטורת בוסמין, בהוא שעתה כדן בוצינין עילאין נהרין, והתקטר קולה כחדה, וחדו וחדוותה ישתכח בכל העלמין. עדה עוד הכתיב שמן וקטורת ישמח לב, ועלדה BeHa'alotkha et hanerot. But come and see. At the moment that the Kohen had the kavanah, meditation, concentration, contemplation, focusing, what's the word kavanah means, to kindle the candles below, remember he said the word below, and also when he was bringing the offering of the incense, as be'ota asha, at the same time, the upper candles were shining. Because if you read the original text, it's a text that's very hard to explain. Okay? Because it says, El mul pnei menorah ya'iru shivat hanerot. The 7 candles will shine in front of the menorah. Okay, everybody knows, there is the Jewish star, which has 7 edges, okay, and 1 center altogether. 6 points and 1 center. So together, it's called. It symbolizes the number 7. The menorah, which is the temple candelabra, there were 3 candles on the right, 3 on the left, and 1 in the middle. Okay. So here when it says that when Aaron, the high priest, was lifting up the candles, BeHa'alotkha, he would raise the candles, He will ascend the candles. That's a word. Basically, what did he do? He physically kindled them. He physically ignited, okay, the lights, the physical fire in the seven candles. However, so the verb over here is to kindle, okay? As the Zohar says, lehadlik, but it says BeHa'alotkha, להעלות, להעלות את הנרות. Okay, what does it mean? And then it says, the seven candles will shine in front of the menorah. And then the sages are trying to explain, because how could that be logic? Should be that after he kindled the candles, okay, the candles were shining in the candelabra, in the menorah. What does it mean that the seven candles shine in front of the candelabra? And the answer, says the Zohar, there are two menorahs. There's a physical menorah in the physical world below. This is like the little plastic buttons on the wall, placed on the wall. You push on them, not for them to be pushed. That's not the goal. Okay? Although it's nice, you know, when you have candles shining, that's always nice. But the purpose was, the meditation was, the contemplation was to make the upper seven sephirot shine. Okay? Which means every action in our physical world could have two aspects. One is the physical aspect, which includes a physical action, moving your limbs, moving your mouth, moving, doing some stuff of that sort that is visible, that can be heard, that can be somehow being perceived by the five senses. However, this is not my intention. My intention is to create a movement, a projection, an illumination somewhere in the world that is beyond the five senses. Okay? So as a human being, being a human being, being the only magical creature on this planet, and what does mean a magical creature? A creature that has a brain, and that brain has the ability to do one thing, for instance, typing on a computer, which is again pushing pieces of plastic, right? And at the same time, activating stuff that happen 1,000 miles away, or in a level of imagination, ideas, and feelings that affect millions of people at the same time, or just another person, but in another continent. Okay? The whole thing that our actions here and now, in the visible dimension that we can physically be involved with, that those actions can be projected into a whole different dimension that is beyond our physical sight and is beyond any other senses we have. This is the basic concept of the calling of a human being. The ability to create something that has a physical body but has a soul that is eternal. Well, the body is just for the moment. Okay? Lighting the candle is how long does it take to light the candle? Like few seconds, less than a second. Okay? Now, how long the effect will be there could be eternally. See, for instance, the lighting of the Chanukiah, of the Candelabra, that the Maccabees lit over 2,000 years ago in the temple after winning the war against the Greeks, or giving their lives away, and then being able to light that menorah, that light shines till today and affects the lives of millions of people still till today. And you know what? The idea is affecting billions. The idea that a human, mortal, limited, finite creature has an ability to ignite and generate something of eternal nature that will last for eternity, even when my physical body has no traces anymore because it became into powder after so many years. Okay, still, that what I generated and created, this is what really counts about my calling and my true fulfillment. So when we talk about that, we have an amazing lesson. BeHa'alotkha is that in the ability of a human magical mind is to take a simple thing like a candle, like a table, okay, and sanctify it just by words, actions, and most of all contemplation and meditation, kavana, and it's not a regular candle anymore. It's a Shabbat candle. It's a holiday candle. It's a meditation candle. It's not, you don't see anymore the wax or the physical fire. You see a connection to something beyond that a animal cannot understand, that a human being that is too childish cannot get. Okay? We are the masters of creativity. We can create those magical moments and forces that make the impact on our lives, on the universe, and on other people. This is without doing that, without that ability to take something that is so simple, that you don't even think a second thought about it, an action, an object, a person, and to make it magic, to bring in a higher than dimension. If you're being deprived of that, which is called you're part of the culture of materialism, and you just believe because everybody tells you that, what you see is what you get. There are no souls, there's no God, there are no metaphysical forces, there's nothing. It's just, chemicals, physics, math. There's nothing like that. Okay, nothing else. That's the only. And you know what? So this culture put people in a terrible mental dungeon. If that's all that there is, who wants this life? It's so empty, so void, so depressing. No wonder that the movies and the books that are the best-selling for years already are all magic, fantasy, and witchcraft, and all kinds of stuff that is mystical. Okay? Why does it have such a market? Such a huge market? Because people are deprived. That's the way to get a little bit of, just for the time of the movie. And then they come back after the movie or reading the book, and they go back to and everything. When you speak about, I had a feeling, I felt the energy, oh, you're weird. Okay? Nobody talks about that stuff. Okay, especially not in your working place. Okay? You're different. You're not like everybody else. It's like, and how many times do you study about how to create magic in elementary school, high school, university? But isn't that what everybody is looking for? Because deep inside we're looking for the magic. And that's why a person writing a book about magic can become a billionaire. Very simple. Because people are so hungry. So when we're speaking about happiness, when we're speaking about cheerfulness, we're speaking about love, all of those are emotions that must contain or exist in the two-dimensional universe that we are part of, as because we do have a soul. Yes, science did not find yet how much that soul weighs. Some people had an idea that they can prove it. That's nonsense. A soul cannot be weighed, not even a microgram. Okay, so forget about it. A soul has nothing to do with the physical world, so it doesn't have a physical weight. Okay, so it doesn't have a weight. It doesn't have a length. It doesn't have a width. It doesn't exist. Just think about radio wave. When a radio wave, you say, oh, long waves, short waves, how long? Can we understand it with the physical senses? Can we measure it with the physical sense? No, it still exists. So, how many radio waves right now going through my body, through your body, as I speak? Okay, can you see them? No. Do they exist? Oh, now we know they exist, because otherwise we couldn't have this conversation. In the first place, it's all waves, okay, in frequencies. So therefore, the next story in the Zohar, one of the most famous story in the Zohar, on verse 12 in Parashat BeHa'alotkha, is about when the Zohar is saying, talking about, there's a story about Noah and the ark, and that on the 7th month after the flood, the water started to dry up, and the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. Okay, and the Zohar is asking, who cares? Those details are not interesting. Why the Zohar has to tell it to us? And the Zohar says, whoever thinks that the Torah is coming to tell us a simple story for little kids, he has no idea what the Torah is about. And the question is again, so if this document, the Torah, was written few thousand years ago, okay, so, the Jewish faith says we have a tradition from father to son for thousands of years that the Torah was given on Mount Sinai 33 centuries ago. Okay? People of the academics, they say, maybe 25 centuries ago. You know what? What's the difference between 33 centuries and 25? Still, that's a long time to write a document that is still a best-selling book so many thousands of years later. And not just a best-selling book, it changed the way the world behaves, thinks. It changed the way national constitutions are being written. It changed the way people feel about their family, about the universe, all over the planet, and still today. And it doesn't want to die out. Okay? So, how can you explain such a document unless it has some forces that are beyond our senses and our logic? Okay? So what the Zohar is saying, the Torah is not talking about the flood and about the ark and about the mountains of Ararat. Every story in the Torah, which is a simple story, but in Hebrew the word simple is pshat, simple. But it has also the same letters as tipesh, a fool. Only a fool sees stuff and he thinks there's nothing behind it, beyond it. Okay? You can look at an object and say, what do I see? What do I see is, I see the object, I see a piece of plastic, glass, whatever, and that's the way it is. What is glass? Oh, that's glass. Is there anything it's made of? No, just. But we know it's made of molecules, atoms, crystals, stuff like this. Okay? Now you learn science. It's everywhere. You don't really see reality the way it is. You see some shadows of the true reality. This is what the Torah is teaching us. And because you see shadows, you should also understand you can use the shadows in order to activate what casts the shadow, the true reality, the real forces. What's the difference between one person to another. Okay? DNA, like we have most of the time, we're pretty similar. Okay? Yeah, we're not exactly the same, but we still, most of us have two ears, two eyes. We mostly, it's statistics. It's like, it's mostly the same by average. Okay? So what different if you're 6 feet tall or 5.5? Okay? You're still having, still a human being with most of the features of a human being. Okay, so what makes a difference? What makes a difference is the soul. That the soul is moving the body. Okay, but the body can also move the soul. Because if a person, and we know that you can fake it till you make it, you put the most happiest music, okay, in your phone, and you start dancing, although you don't feel like celebrating right now. But you know it's the only way to kill your depression. So what happens? By moving your limbs happily, you start to influence your mind, your subconscious mind, to be excited and happy. Okay? So we know that by moving one thing, you can affect another aspect of that you cannot see it, but you know when it's being activated. Okay? And that's what the Zohar is teaching us. Only a fool thinks that what I see, okay, I'm looking right now on a screen. Okay? What do I see in the screen? So, once upon a time, people were so crazy about TVs. There must be some midgets behind the screen. There's no way. Like that, those people behind the glass are not there. Okay? Because they didn't understand the ability to project a picture, a sound, from one place to another. Today, it's like a second nature for us. We're born into it. Okay? Kids today play more with screens than with physical books. Okay? I don't know if you've seen that you put a book in front of a 2 years old child, and are trying to move the pictures like like in a tablet. And it doesn't move because it's a book. And the baby is saying, oh, it's broken. Okay? Because the baby sees more screens than real books. Okay. So what is the message over here? Parashat Naso, Parashat BeHa'alotkha, they're most of the time being read around the holiday of Shavuot, in the month of Sivan. And the month of Sivan, Gemini, what is Gemini? The twins, two who are one. And the Zohar is teaching us this is why the Torah was given during the month of Sivan, Gemini. Because what is Torah one? It's the ability to take a physical brain that is conditioned for physical life and to bring in another programming, another app that makes the same brain being able to think in a universe that is multi-dimensional, that is beyond time and space the way our physical senses understand them. That I can celebrate the holiday of Shavuot, and I'm really connecting to an event that happened 33 centuries ago, like it's happening right now, and I'm excited about it. I can feel it. I can feel the transformation. I can feel the vibes going through my mind and my heart, and something happens to me because that exposure to those ancient energies, basically that you cannot connect to them on another day. Okay, but that exposure makes me a better person. Okay, how can you explain to somebody that he really believes only in chemistry, math, and physics? But when you come to learn some quantum physics and you learn that information, that energy can be transferred beyond time and space, and then you speak about time machines, but why by time machine? Just to deliver energy and information from one point of the galaxy to another with no time between. Okay? This is already proven right. Is it logical? No, but it is real. The same thing that the Zohar is teaching us. Don't let your physical logic mislead you, because the real things that we're here for, like love, happiness, excitement, are not logical, right? All the logical stuff that we do are something that as kids we're being conditioned. You being a good boy, a good girl, you just follow certain actions and your life is okay. And mom, how do I learn to be happy? How do I learn to love? That will come when you have money and possessions and honor and respect. You'll also be, people will love you and respect you, and you will be happy. And we know it doesn't work this way. Okay? So what kind of a logic do I need to have in order to experience love that is not a physical thing? Oh yes, there is falling in love, which is the same pattern as any addiction, like alcohol or different kind of addictions. In the brain, that's falling in love. That's not love, ahava, that the Torah is talking about, which is not about falling, that's about BeHa'alotkha. That's about connecting the two dimensions. So the lighting of the Shabbat candles, the holiday candles, a memorial candle, there is a physical action of kindling the physical fire in the candle, but there's also a meditation, a contemplation that I want to connect to something that is beyond, and that's called out of the box. So here we are being taught by the Torah about a multidisciplinary system of understanding the universe. The universe is not just physics. It's not just chemistry. It's like in order to have a complete understanding of a process, you need physics and you need chemistry and you need maybe biology and psychology, but you need also some spirituality. When you put all of these together, you will be able to figure out what's going on over here. But without the spiritual dimension, it's all basically so void, so empty, because how much of the universe is occupied by the stuff that we can physically perceive? And we know, according to science, what we physically perceive is basically an illusion. The way you perceive that stuff is not the way it is. It's only our perception of that object, person, event. Okay? So when I train myself to be in every moment of my life like the Kohen, that I light the candles, but at the same time I'm activating the upper sephirot, the upper illuminations. What I mean upper, how high are they? They're not high physically, they're simply in a higher frequency. Today, thanks to science, we know there could be another frequency. Right now, maybe you're watching right now this lesson in a smartphone that is connected to no physical thing, okay? And there's nobody sitting in the phone, and the information is coming through a wireless connection. You don't see anything traveling through air into your smartphone, and still that information keeps on flowing. So we have to get used to the idea that most of what's happening around us, and especially the flow of information and energy, is invisible. Did you ever see electricity running in the wires? No, you can't see anything. Okay, so how does it run through the wires? You look at the wires, nothing runs over there. So do we see? No, we don't. Do we see happiness? Do we see? I'm talking about the energy that generates happiness. So how do we summon, how do we invite that energy into our lives? That's what the Torah is about. That's a training. That when you study the Torah, you train your mind slowly, slowly to live in few dimensions simultaneously. In the dimension of the body, in the dimension of the soul, in the dimension of the physicality, in the dimension of the spirituality. No one, neither of them has to be eliminated and can be eliminated. Although when you try to shut down one of them, it's whatever is left will be gone also, because it's complete only when you put everything together. So when somebody is sick and in the hospital, okay, and the doctors are trying to find a cure, and many times you need a whole council of brainstorming, people from different backgrounds, in order to find the true way to heal the person. So you need somebody from a social worker, and you need a spiritual advisor, and you need a medical clown, and you need an oncologist, and you need at the same time a dietitian. And the answer is, when you change the person's lifestyle, but with so many aspects, that will create the healing. Okay? And you can't just, oh, one drug will solve the problem. It doesn't work this way. We are not just chemistry. Now, another thing that you can find in the parasha that somehow complements what we just said, there is in this parasha a whole essay about the 72 names of God. Okay? And why? We'll see the connection. I'm going right now to the Zohar Sulam, verse 33. כתיב, ויסע מלאך האלוהים ההולך לפני המחנה. And it brings a quote from the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 19. And we know verse 19, 20, 21, they are the three verses that the 72 holy names of God are encoded in. Okay, again, Exodus chapter 14, verses 19, 20, 21. Each one of these three verses is made of 72 letters exactly. Okay? When these three verses come together, you can create a combination, permutation, that you call it the 72 names of God. Each one of them has three letters, 72 combinations of three letters each. The first letter belongs to the first verse, verse 19, chapter 14. The second letter is from verse 20, and the third letter is from verse 21. Okay? And that's called the 72 names of God. Using the 72 names of God allows us to make that leap to that world in which you can be in the physical and the spiritual in the same time. You're basically living in the two dimensions of existence. Your head is in the heavens and your feet are on the ground. Okay, and how does that happen? And the Zohar is saying that the verse itself, verse 19, chapter 14 in Exodus, it says, Vayisa malach Elohim, and the angel of God traveled. And when it says the angel, says the Zohar, not angels, the angel, that's the Holy Spirit, that's a Shekhinah, that's a divine presence. And it says, at that time, when Moses and the nation of Israel are facing the Red Sea, it's in front of them, and there are mountains to the right and mountains to the left, and the Egyptian army is behind them. Okay? And then the miracle of splitting the Red Sea happens. At that time, says the Zohar, Emanu Shebashai, when it says that the angel of God traveled, how did he travel? How did the divine presence, how does the Shekhinah travel? Okay? With the help of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. כלומר שקיבלה, אז מגימל קווין חגת הנקראים אבות, says Rabbi, like because it received from the three-column system that is called the patriarchs. So in Hebrew the word is fathers. Now a father is, a father, a biological father, but there's also another thing. When you say in Hebrew a prototype, you call it also a father. Why? Because a prototype is the first structure that fathers all the others that are being evolved, that come and being born from the first idea. And then there are improvements. So when we are talking about the fathers, we're talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that each one of them, again, yes, there was a person named Abraham. There was a person named Isaac. There was a person named Jacob. Yes, okay. However, those people, we're not talking about the person, the private individual. We're talking about the concept that these people bring to our reality. Abraham taught us to connect to that aspect of chesed, loving kindness, on a metaphysical level, as a source of power, as a frequency, as a mindset, as not just as a physical thing, but through Abraham we learn that if you want to awaken the magical force of unconditional love and giving, you have physically to create it. But thinking again, with the physical actions, you're creating that and generating that energy of chesed. So when you have a house, a working place, that there's a lot of chesed. What does it mean chesed? On the physical level, people devote themselves for helping others. On a spiritual level, that energy is started to be somehow recorded in the walls, in the objects. You come in and you feel chesed. You feel something hugging you, comforting you. Okay? So some houses, they're built only on judgment. Okay, why? What do I mean judgment? You build the most perfect home with the most perfect professionals, but it has to be clean and perfect like a museum. Okay? There's no generosity over there. You're not using the perfect house to be a perfect entertainer of guests. So what's left? Just empty, maybe stone, plastic, wood, other cold metals. And you come into the house and it's a museum. It's a structure. Okay? It's a monument to somebody's ability to invest or spend money they have or they don't have. Okay? While other people, they create the place so that place has a saying, I'm using that house to be an aspect of my personality, which means I want to make people feel good. That's why I built that house this way, so people can feel, be welcomed. Okay? And that's a feeling. And by the way, it's not just something, oh, that's weird what you're saying. No, everybody today is in sales. Okay? You want to sell a product. We know today, scientifically, the service is more important than the physical product itself. It's the aura that you create around the product, the aura you create around the company, about the whole system. So people don't just buy a product. They buy a membership in a certain idea. That's called branding. Branding is not, what are you selling? Oh, I'm selling chairs. No, you're not selling chairs. You're selling something bigger than chairs. When people get it, they understand something better about selling, because what people want is not just the physical chair. They want the whole story behind it. And when you have a story, now, if the story, people today know about it. So it could be a fake, it could be genuine. And you know what? How much fake can people buy? So here the Torah is teaching us about that real great idea. And therefore, it's why it's 3 verses. And I don't want to go into too much explanation, but the 3 verses, that the first one is Abraham, the right column, the energy of loving and kindness, which is, it's a nice thing, but you can't just live on loving and kindness. Okay? And the Creator created this world especially hard and cruel, so we learned it. Because you need Isaac, you need the left column, you need judgment. And judgment means the ability to say, no, I can't give you everything I have. Okay? But you have to put boundaries. You have to say no. You have to overcome your fears and to move on. That is gvura. The real meaning of the word gvura is overcoming. It's not judgment in Hebrew. But then you have number 3, verse 3. Central column. Jacob. What is that? Again, Mount Sinai revelation. 2 tablets. Gemini. 2 who are 1. How? That's multidisciplinary. How do you take the idea of generosity and love and giving service and being authentic and so on one hand, and really make your clients or your friends or your family feel your devotion, and at the same time, you're not neglecting the left column, the gevura, which means you have to stand for yourself. You have to make sure you have enough income so you can finance the project of your dream, so you can give the service, okay? And how do you take those 2 thinkings, loving generosity, giving devotion, and at the same time being practical and making sure you make enough money so you can develop yourself and move forward and improve your brand all the time? Central column is about that when these 2 things, for a person that is not trained, it's a headache. Why? Because it's contradiction. How could at the same time I can be a brand of love and kindness and service and unconditional caring and authentic sharing, and at the same time I must be careful to make enough money and to say these are the lines of how much service I can give. How can you put these 2 together and make them one non-frustrating way of life? That is the central column. That is the Torah. Again, you see, it's like you live in 2 dimensions at the same time, and you're healthy. You go straight. You know, when a person is drunk, he goes in zigzag, because when he uses his right leg, he goes all the way to the right. When he's using his left leg, he's going all the way to the left. Because, you know, what's the problem? When you get drunk, you lose your central column. So you can't use your right and left legs and at the same time move forward. You need that central column. So the same thing in the real world. You can't just take people's money. You can't just give a service. You have to be in both places at the same time. How do you do that? How do you take money for your service and at the same time people feel that you really care for them? Okay? How do you insist on your honor, respect, dignity with your relationship with your community and family, and at the same time, people feel from you unconditional love and caring. This is the secret of success, the ability to do what is not logical. It's not logical. So the Torah is giving us that aspect. That's what the 72 names are about. It's about accessing this programming, out of this world programming, right? Out of the box programming, in which you can see win-win. That's a tree of life state of mind. Because tree of knowledge is win-lose. It's once it's good, not good. Good and evil. But the tree of life is only good. How? This is the consciousness of the Torah. This is when you unite the spiritual realm and the physical realm. This is when you really establish love others as you love yourself. And what is the secret Rabbi Ashlag is teaching us? When you love others in order to connect to the realm beyond the five senses, to the realm of spiritual light, to the realm of eternal force of positivity. And when you do that, you don't need the person you love to reciprocate. You're not standing there, okay, I called you 10 times, I was nice to you 5 times, I forgave you 3 times, and you're not I'm doing it in order to connect to the dimension of spiritual light, not to be dependent on somebody else's moods and abilities. So when you love others, you connect to the upper world. That's why it's called a mitzvah. When you do all of those, you follow the roads and the pathways of the Torah. Basically, it trains you how to live in both dimensions and how to brand yourself as that person that is full of energy, and therefore you can generate the miracles and the magic of your life without being deprived all the time, cheated, or whatever, like disillusioned, because that's the biggest pain and we don't want to be there. Thank you so much and have a great week.